speaking unless it's like a really viral post. Then Fridays aren't too bad. We usually post something a bit more light on that day. We don't focus too much on like what, like the marketing specific or recruitment or whatever the industry is. The rest of the days we will be posting about like client results that these guys have had, or something to do with industry specific.
Yo, this is Christian D. Evans with Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to our amazing podcast. This is where we reveal the top 1% of business concepts and systems and processes to scale 8 and 9 figure businesses. We interview top level 8 and 9 figure CEOs, business owners, and amazing TEDx speakers like David Meltzer. We got Nick Cavuto, Pascal Bachman, and so many others. And if you feel like this resonates with you, please share this with your friend, your family, and make sure you impact them as well, because we're trying to spread the message on those that do not know how to scale 8, 9 figure businesses and talking higher level business concepts. So guys, remember, enjoy the episode and be uncommon if you can. Cheers. Thank you so much for tuning in to Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. I'm your host, Christian D. Evans. 2 million monthly LinkedIn organic views. This next woman is an incredible young entrepreneur, but also an incredible social media strategist. And that's the reason why I wanted to have her on, because she is dominating social media. Now, she is 20 years old and Young Entrepreneur of the Year 2022, is a startup founder of Pivot, a personal branding and social media agency on its way to 6 figures, and Young Accelerators, a soon-to-launch subscription model, community, and e-learning platform for youngsters who want to do the same. She has been building her personal brand around authenticity and humanized marketing, with over 2 million monthly views on LinkedIn and a digital presence of 50,000 across platforms. She is now traveling the world helping others build their online brands. She is a speaker and working hard to make a sustainable, positive impact on the education sector and the workplace. Please welcome the CEO and founder of Pivot, Kat Philp. How you doing, Kat?
Hi, Christian. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, hey, I'm really excited about this because, one, you're very young, but what is so incredible is that does not stop you. And I would just like to ask, because obviously you're scaling, you got incredible organic reach. A lot of people are just gravitating toward you and giving you tons of opportunity. And first of all, my main question is, we'll dive into the strategy, but where did that come from? Where did that energy, where did that synergy, where did that entrepreneurial spirit come from at such a young age?
Good question. I do get asked this a lot. I'd have to say it came from something along the lines of where my corporate career started. So I knew I always had like the values and everything instilled in me that I could drive everything forward. So like my positions, I always wanted to ask for more responsibility and stuff like that. And sometimes I was denied that opportunity. So I moved on elsewhere and I was able to do those things there. But there was always a bit of a wall, and I couldn't quite overcome that because of my age. So I'd be sitting in interviews and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, I love this. I think we could be really good here. But you could be a good addition to the team." And then I'd be like, "Okay, brilliant." And then they'd say, "How old are you, by the way?" I'd tell them my age, and then there'd be a bit of hesitation. So it was really annoying because obviously I had the results and I had all of my, my CV and everything that was showing that I had enough in me, but the age thing was always a limiting factor. So I always wanted to give more than I was able to. And so I think that opportunity presented itself and I was able to start my agency. So I guess that's where I came from.
I love it. I love it because I remember when I was 18 years old, I had braces and just totally, I had my life license, security license, and I was selling insurance. And it was so funny because very similar. It's like, why would anybody buy insurance from someone with, 18, 19 years old that's got braces? But hey, people do. But the reality is you come in confident. I think that's what's incredible. And obviously you pivoted more toward the online space and running your own agency, which I think is remarkable. Let me ask you, do you have mentors? Do you have, or who have been your mentors to help you kind of facilitate your mindset, your capability? Because obviously getting a lot of this organic traffic, there's tons of opportunities that present themselves, and obviously being very strategic on, hey, you know what, this is where I'm going, this is what I'm doing, and being very disciplined with that. Who has been a big influencer in your life?
I didn't have a mentor as such. I've had different people who've inspired me in different ways and taught me different things. So one beginning with the likes of Stephen Bartlett and Gary Vee. So those are two big key roles in my life. So Stephen Bartlett more for the mindset side of things and being able to grow and learn from everything, which is really important when you're starting out in the entrepreneurial world, because it's quite lonely and you have to learn to be resilient and have all the soft skills about you to be able to get through that initial stage when you're like not even breaking, even. So there's a lot of different factors there that have really helped me. And then Gary Vee is quite motivational to the point. So, if you're having those days where you have a bit of imposter syndrome or something, Gary Vee will motivate me to feel like I can do anything. So those are my two key inspirational people. And then in the UK, we have a couple of different businesses which kind of operate on a subscription model, which will offer like sort of advice and like marketing information, I suppose, how to run a business kind of thing. And it's called the Entrepreneur Circle. So I was a member of them for a few months, about 3 months or so, halfway through my startup career. And using those tools and like it's such an early part of the business was really helpful, because most people go to them when they are like 20 years in business or 10 years or 5 years in business, and they have to like rewire everything. So instead of rewiring all the things you've been taught along the way, starting in that almost entrepreneur school almost was really helpful. And those are probably the biggest integral parts of my entrepreneurial career journey.
That's awesome. And so let me ask you this, because consuming that content, and definitely either whether you're a startup, whether you're at mid stage, whether you're $1 million, whether you're an 8-figure business, I think throughout your journey there are certain skills that you have to focus on now that allow you to level up. And what are you noticing? Like, what were some skills that you had to acquire pretty quickly that weren't natural to you, that you had to say, okay, I gotta be in my comfort zone and to establish this? Is it just more of sales skills? Is it marketing? I'd love to kind of get your response on what that journey looked like a little bit for you.
For me, the biggest weakness that I spotted early on in the journey was sales. So I think that came from a lack of self-belief in my own product, and also I am quite empathetic and emotionally sort of intelligent. So I can see every moment when somebody switches off, and like when I'm giving a sales talk or something or a presentation, I can see and I get nervous and I'm like, I want to get them back. And so it was one of those where I was kind of fighting and conflicting with myself, and it was really difficult. So I took a few sales courses, and I was about to hire a salesperson. However, my personal brand took off so much that I just have a 100% inbound business at the moment. So there's no need for a salesperson right now. I take all the sales calls, and they all come to me. So for now that works, and that will be long-term our strategy as well, but it's always good to have some backups just in case I'm sick or something. So
Well, and you bring up a really good point, and I appreciate you being authentic and sharing that, because what I found so interesting, just like I was saying, is like throughout different levels of stages, you have to acquire certain skills, and that's why I think it's so interesting. Some people like yourself, they think, oh, you're just innate and you're just always, had those skills, and no, you had to really learn and develop those. So now I did find your strategy is super remarkable, because what happens is it's attraction, right? Where people just get attracted to who you are, your personality. And if anybody's ever looked at some of your LinkedIn content, it resonates so well with this audience. First of all, just kind of help me understand that journey. What did you test? What were some things you realized, okay, this really resonates with people, this doesn't? What did that long-term kind of trajectory look like? Hey, at the beginning, I know you probably took a while. What did you do to really build that foundation of those consistent followers? And how do you really optimize the view, the organic reach?
Good question. So with my LinkedIn, I mean, I've been on LinkedIn for like a few years now, but I didn't really start posting in the way that I do now. So I started off with like all the corporate stuff, like, oh, I'm attending this event, see you there kind of thing, that kind of the usual corporate spiel. So I started off doing that, and then I was seeing some good results on my Instagram. So I actually started my social media sort of channels on Instagram. And I started posting about my highs and lows. So a lot of people talk about like, oh, I just got myself a new Gucci bag or a new Range Rover or something like that. And so I wanted to be the sort of person that actually did something about, talking about the difficulties, because we all know that social media is toxic for that, but nobody actually does anything about it. We just sit there and we just take it. So I thought, okay, let me try and do something here. So I started being authentic with myself on there. And I started talking about, okay, hey, look, I've got this, 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 and that, but also I've got, struggles. I've got like depression or whatever was going on with me at the time. And so people really, really reacted to that. And it wasn't necessarily just in case of engagement, but it was the messages that I got. And that was what inspired me to do the same over on LinkedIn. And so I literally just put one post out on LinkedIn at like 7 p.m. on a Thursday night. So it's not usually my advised times to post, but it got a lot of traction for a post for me at the time. It was a couple of hundred likes. And for me, that was some sense of virality compared to 5 likes that I'd been getting. So it was really nice to see that it resonated with a lot of people. And so from then I created more content like that. And I've kind of been building that up ever since. And so now I've been obviously trialing a load of different things and variables and split testing with clients. And we've noticed that the posts with images in general get a huge amount of reach compared to just text. And especially if they're photos of like you, like a selfie or a photo of you at like an event or something that just looks more authentic than like you in a suit kind of thing. So, because let's be honest, are you really going to care about some random guy who slicked his hair back in a suit and looks too stiff? If you really think about the psychological aspect, it's more than just a selfie. It's just bringing that authenticity and the familiarity and the trust, because people buy from people that they know, like, and trust. So if you can nail all of those areas, you're naturally going to have that attraction to you. So I've noticed that really works with LinkedIn. And I tried it this morning with a new client. He was getting like, I don't know, about 5 likes a post or something. And tried it this morning. He posted a photo, and in the content structure that I go for with my clients, and he's already got like 3 new leads this morning just from one post, and really good engagement. So it works.
Well, what's so interesting about your approach, just like you said, is we've seen a massive trajectory. See, I know Microsoft recently invested heavily into LinkedIn. I don't know, I think it was like a few years ago they acquired it. And ever since then, they've been able to really, put a lot of energy because they want to, compete with Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and so forth. And just like you're saying, I'm noticing because of that, you're really able to optimize the highest level because you're talking to people that are B2B world. This is kind of who your market is. But also your approach is, organic, right? Which is, hey, I'm attracting people to what I'm basically saying. Now, my question though is like you were saying, how do you optimize your post to attract a hook, stop them, and interrupt them, engage them, and then as well as maybe on the back end have some sort of CTA, a call to action. And what does that look like? Because obviously you want them to either follow you, you want them to either, engage with your other content and kind of just be in your ecosystem. So how would you say to facilitate that?
Mm-hmm. So with a lot of the posts that I make, so first of all, I start with like the purpose for each post. So I have different content pillars that I talk about. So I have about 3 different subjects, which is entrepreneurship, personal growth, and marketing/personal branding. And those are the things that I want to be known for. So we always start with, what do you want to be known for? What's the purpose of building your online brand? And then from there, you can begin to think of all the topics that you're going to talk about. And then as far as creating the content goes, I mean, that's more of a documentation process. So I think about ideas throughout the day, to be honest with you, and just jot them down. But as far as that goes, then I go to an actual structure. So for my personal growth posts, I usually start with a hook. So something that's going to make people want to stop or click more and find out what this amazing story is about. So one of my most recent posts, which is a really good hook, which was in speech marks, it said, "You did what?" with like loads of question marks. So obviously people want to know what I did from there, so they click see more. It tells them about a story that was relevant to my niche. So it was about my entrepreneurship career, like how did I get into the entrepreneurial world, and all the challenges that I overcame. And people always relate to those sorts of stories because everybody's been through it. So when I talk about my marketing content, there's a slightly different audience there because not everybody in my LinkedIn following is in marketing. So it's a very different niche. But when I do those personal growth posts, those are the ones that hit home, go viral, and all sorts of things like that. So it's all about realizing what kind of purpose you can bring with each post. And so there's different structures that I go by, and that one's the one that works well for engaging people and growing the audiences.
So when you say, and I appreciate you unpacking that a little bit, but let's go dive a little bit deeper. So personal growth post, what you have found is it goes a little bit more viral. Kind of how do you structure that a little bit? Is it more of just like, hey, I'm quoting something, or is it more of like, hey, this is what I'm learning, or is it more of like, hey, asking a specific question? I'd love to get your response on that.
Yeah, so it's so as I said, I start with a hook, so it gets the people in, and then there's an element of storytelling. So I'll tell a story. It has to be a short story because LinkedIn, I mean, who really wants to read like 5,000 paragraphs? That's not what people are on LinkedIn for, right? So you have to try and keep it short, like probably a couple of maybe like a paragraph or something like that, like a large paragraph. So try and keep it as concise as you can. And it's the way in which you tell the story. And a lot of people have different ways of telling their stories. I mean, everyone has a different way of writing, but there's one particular tip that stuck with me that I heard somebody say, which is write as you would speak, because a lot of people can't write naturally. So what somebody said was to dictate it into your phone, just record a voice memo or something of you speaking about this event in your life that you're going to write about, and then type it out word for word from that. Because a lot of people can't naturally write, and that's okay. But this is a really good tip for those who can't. So it's a case of getting them in. Once you've got them in, telling a story that's going to resonate with them, and then a call to action or something that's kind of really going to hit home. And so at the end, I put like "go get them" or something like that. So it's really inspirational.
Gotcha. That makes perfect sense. So let me ask you this with LinkedIn, okay? Because I know you optimize your profile and stuff like that. A lot of individuals, what I'm noticing is like, they're real heavy in the DM side of things, which is like, hey, I'm just going to go cold reach, blah, 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 all that stuff. What I'm noticing though is obviously that's very ineffective. However, though, it's just a matter of your approach. So do you heavily focus more on, hey, I'm going to go out there, push organic reach, put the authenticity out, and then naturally attract those individuals, and then naturally my DMs will get qualified leads basically, and I can qualify them from there? Or is it more of, hey, I'm going to do kind of the 1-2 approach, hey, I'm going to go post, and then as well as I'm going to DM and reach out to a lot of people? What does that look like?
I don't do any outreach at all. So I am very fortunate actually that I don't have to do that. But even when I was just starting out with LinkedIn, it's surprising the amount of DMs you get just from one post. And it's hard to believe that at first, like, oh, you must do some sort of outreach. But actually, no, I mean, I get about 100 DMs a day, and that's not necessarily all just, some of those are leads, some of those are speaking opportunities, some of those are just people trying to say hi and make friendship. And there's a great variety in there, but I don't do any outreach at all. And that's just the power of these tools that we have available to us. It's just a case of, taking the time and investing into these resources.
That's awesome. So if you could maybe help us, you mentioned this a little bit, but I'd love for you to maybe walk us through kind of a client of yours that, like you said, we're only getting 5 comments, maybe even like likes or whatever. And all of a sudden, what did that trajectory look like in regards to, okay, hey, boom, we started building kind of your infrastructure, starting to see results pretty quickly, the lead generation, but also like, hey, what kind of cash flow, what kind of, connections were they able to attract, and deals that they were able to close because of this system? So if you could maybe walk us through kind of one of your clients, that'd be awesome.
Of course, yeah. So we're going to call them Client X. So Client X, we started with optimizing their profile. So before we actually create content, if somebody sees this content, they're going to want to click onto the profile and see what the person's about. So we always have to have a nicely optimized profile to begin with. So we will create an engaging headline about what they do, possibly add some sort of certification in there, like, I don't know, if they won an award or if they have a podcast or something that makes them more reputable and like why people should listen to them. And then from there, we obviously optimize the about section to kind of what they do, and it's a call to action in there. And just making sure that the imagery and the banners are obviously optimized. In general, a lot of the clients that get coming to me are okay with their profile in terms of photos, but there are a lot where maybe they have photos with their kids on there or something like that. And generally, we kind of need to get a better quality image of them. So we start with profile optimization. And then after that, we will sit down with them, usually on a weekly basis. We'll just talk to them, get to know them. And naturally, there'll be stories that will come up, things that they've experienced, things that they've overcome. And we can begin to structure content around that. So, and then after that, obviously, before that, we've actually discussed the purpose. So, you know, what their long-term goal is with their personal brand and what they want to be known for. So then once we've got a few stories, we can begin to create the storytelling element of content pillars. So, you know, something that they've overcome, a challenge, and then that'll be one post to go out, maybe 1 to 2 personal growth posts we like to do a week. Usually Mondays and Thursdays are the best for that, because Monday's the start of the week. You get good traction over the rest of the week. I think you get about 24 hours on each post until it's kind of done. Generally speaking, unless it's like a really viral post. Then Fridays aren't too bad. We usually post something a bit more light on that day. We don't focus too much on like what, you know, like the marketing specific or recruitment or whatever the industry is. The rest of the days we will be posting about like client results that these guys have had, or something to do with industry specific information, which obviously we can dive into a bit more later. But that's the content structure that we follow. And so then we try and post 5 times a week, and usually weekdays. We are trialing weekends to see how that will work. But generally not many people post over the weekend. So maybe it's a good time to capitalize on that. We don't know yet. So yeah, so from there, the actual content, we've noticed it's not even just like a slow, gradual upwards battle. It's like straight away. It's like because especially when we're starting with a person who's just posting corporate stuff or things that people aren't really interested in, we see like an overnight snap in their content. And obviously there were ups and downs within that. You know, naturally I get that now as well. So sometimes my views will go down and up and down, but it's just a different way of reaching your audience, is just through being authentic. Because if you actually look at the content that you like, you need to try and create it from that point of view, because we're also stuck in the same ways of copying what other people do in terms of on LinkedIn that's not creating content like this. But it's weird that we copy these people who aren't producing results. You know, they get 2-3 likes a post or something, and we're still copying them. Why? You know, so hopefully that's been a bit more of a breakdown as to what we do. But obviously, if you have any more questions, I'm happy to go even deeper than that.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And I hope my audience is definitely taking notes, because this is very valuable, very valuable. Because again, you really, what I love about what you're saying is it's so strategic approach. And sometimes so many people, I always like try to look for the high leverage activities. And the thing is, obviously your experience, your expertise is, hey, you know what? We can see this turn. It's not takes 90 days, 60 days. We literally can see that turn very quickly, because it's just a strategic approach. We already know what your industry is looking for. We know how to really position the content to hook, attract, engage them, and then obviously kind of walk them through. Now, one of the things I know is like you can only send out 100 connection requests a week, right? However, though, you can accept as many as you want, and that's why I love your approach, because you're attracting people. Now they are spending their connection request to connect with you, and now naturally you can say, hey, yeah, wonderful, and then obviously engage them on the back end. One of the things, and I'd love to get your response on this. One of the things I notice is I sometimes post Sunday evening right before Monday, because I'm noticing some people start getting into work, getting into a little bit of email, getting a little bit of that stuff just to kind of prepare. And I've noticed my engagement, my impressions started to increase just a little bit, but I just found that very interesting, because that's what I've noticed a little bit. But I love posting 5 times a day. And then obviously, like you said, that strategic approach, I think it's really incredible. Now, you did mention something industry specific. Let's kind of dial into that a little bit, because so many times I see a lot of either, mid 6-figure, 7-figure businesses that struggle with this. We just want to push out content just to push out content, because that's kind of what hashtag Gary V talks about, right? And the thing is yes, but I love your approach because it's very strategic and it's very like sniper like. And so maybe if you could kind of walk us through that a little bit. Again, that has to do with probably understanding your client, understanding your avatar, understanding what that looks like and who your ideal client is. But walk us through what you do for a new client of yours to really help them say, okay, hey, what does that look like? Let's build a strategy behind it and be very tactical.
Of course, yeah. So with the industry specific type of content that we'll post, it's usually like myths around the particular industry, and sort of because when you sort of dive deep into the industry and say actually this is wrong, that makes you look like more of an expert and positions you as like, oh, you know what you're talking about. So we begin with stuff like that and like tips and stories behind things that might have like not gone well in the past. So in my marketing career, for example, before I started the agency, I was in marketing and sales roles. And so I have plenty of stories about clients or like the team members who didn't really understand things about marketing and struggles along the way to do with my marketing career rather than my entrepreneurial journey. And so there are all sorts of types of content that anyone can make. I mean, any industry, there's always going to be a problem somewhere, that an inconvenience and things that people always talk about that you can capitalize on and get plenty of engagement, connections, and sort of elevate yourself, I suppose. And so that's really been quite helpful for a lot of our clients. And we talk about like the struggles of marketing or the struggles of this, or even it doesn't even have to be struggles. It could be on the flip side. It could be, oh, we've had some amazing client results. Let's see why this works. And then you dive into why it works. And that type of content really attracts, because you're showcasing that it's worked, and then you're showcasing why. So you're giving some free advice, and then you're positioning yourself as an expert by saying, hey, it's worked and here's why. So
that's awesome. Now, I like to pivot a little bit, because just like you mentioned earlier on in our conversation, you get 100 DMs a day. Now, that is obviously a lot going on, because obviously you also are dealing with the sales phone calls. You're also dealing with the fulfillment on the back end. And obviously, as the CEO and the founder, you're developing, your business structure. So you got a lot of hats. So obviously that's, and a lot of other people are thinking the same way. So now you have prospects, which is wonderful. What is your process to kind of maybe build those relationships, stay in follow-up, connect with them? What does that look like to make sure you're still streamlined and maximizing every opportunity that's presented?
That's a really good question, actually, because I haven't been so up to date with my DMs and connection requests this week, but I managed to find some time last night to try and filter through them, and I had so much stuff that I'd missed out on. And so it's really important to make that time, because you can post and that's great, but then you need to make sure that you're also engaging and speaking to people, because that's where the real money is. So so with regards to DMs and stuff, the quickest thing that I can do is go through my DMs and read each sort of subject line really quickly and see if there's anything that relates to kind of like a prospect. So usually there's a few that come in through my services page, or it's like, hey, I'd love to know more about what you do. And I open it, I see, check out the person, see if there's like, someone who's actually serious about this, or if they're not. You can kind of get a sense for who's serious usually, like by their profile, what they do, whether they're active on the platform and stuff like that. And if they directly ask you for your services. So from there, I'll send them a Calendly link. It takes out all of the whole, oh, are you free at 11 o'clock? Oh, no, I can't do that time. So it's so much quicker. Just send a link and they can book in a time when suits them and suits you. So that's the next thing I do. Then I'll hop onto the call with them. We've got a like they have to fill in a quick questionnaire about what they want from the call. And in that questionnaire is usually like, why did you book this call? And so it's, oh, we want to take your services up. So then automatically I know that these calls are being booked for the right reason. And the call name is social media and personal branding consultation. So I know for a fact that these leads are now being filtered in through the right way. And so after that, I just get on the call. I've done a little bit of due diligence because I've got their name, I've got their LinkedIn profile, email address, whatever it is that I need. Have a quick look at what they do, and then we're able to talk through their needs, listen to them, and then sell to them. And most of the time I get about 2/3 to 3/4 of the prospects conversion. So
Shoot, that's a process right there. That's awesome, though. I love it because you just usually got to streamline that. Do you ever try to automate that? And what I mean by that is having like a VA kind of take advantage of that, or like work with systems or processes, or not yet because you want to still be very engaged with your audience.
So this is a problem that a lot of people have. It's where to draw the line with engaging versus hiring someone to do it. And so I'd love to, I mean, I've thought about it for the past like 3 months to get someone in and just respond to my comments, respond to some DMs, but it's really difficult because building a personal brand is all around you. You have to be reflecting your true self on that. And if you're having somebody who's always commenting back that's not you, and they like, people will think that they're building this connection with you when in reality you have no idea who they are. And so there's an element of, yeah, you have to be quite involved and quite hands-on, but there are things that you can take away from that. And so there's a balance. And so what I'm going to do going forward, because it took me like a whole week to catch up on last week's stuff, so I need to try and find this balance. But what I think is good to do is maybe start with the comment section. So maybe get someone to comment back to people, maybe engage on other people's posts. And obviously you can do some in between, because you don't want to just give it off to somebody totally. But I think DMs is something that you should handle personally, because that's where you actually build like even more connection. And there's one more tip that I'd throw into there is send voice notes. Send as many voice notes as you can, because that just builds that extra connection with your prospects. So anytime anyone says, hey, I'd love to chat to you, I send a voice note to say, hey, thank you so much for reaching out. And they get this great energy from me, and they're already kind of half sold before they come onto the call.
Wow, I love that, because I do know you can also do video notes. Is that correct on LinkedIn?
Yeah, that's correct. So, yes.
What have you noticed with that, playing around with that a little bit? Because like you said, I noticed right away they can feel it. So it's tremendously different, and it's something that most people aren't doing. And then as well as doing video. I know it takes a little bit more time, but I'd love to get your response on that.
Yeah, it's something that I haven't done too much on. I know a lot of people who do videos, and they are great. They're great for building that connection even further. But I think voice notes are almost quite just as effective. Obviously, video will still always go that step further, but not everybody has the time or even wants to film a video of themselves every single day. Not everyone likes the way they look. So perhaps voice note is the way forward, and you can really come across as dominant. You could re-record it like 10 times if you really need to, and it's a really handy little trick.
That's awesome. Yeah. One of the things is I just love this approach. And again, I can't foot stomp this enough, because it's like, one, you're doing something that other people aren't doing. And so it really just, it stands above the crowd, right? And then as well as, like you said, they can feel the energy. They feel like, wow, and I've also noticed that on LinkedIn, just very similar like Instagram, they put that little video where you can actually kind of do a little, like a 60-second or 30-second recording of yourself, who you are, blah, blah, blah. I've been watching a lot. Now, I think you have to have like a certain kind of profile to be able to get access to that. I'm not sure, but I've noticed, maybe share with our audience how to optimize that 30-60 seconds to, really give your audience a little bit like a taste of who you are, what you do, and how you do things.
Yeah, those are really important, actually. It's something that I do keep putting off, I'll be totally honest with you, but it is something I'd love to finally do at some point. It's just do a quick introductory video as to who I am, what I do, how I do it, why I do it, and why they should care. So it's usually just answering as many questions as you can within an optimized time frame. So try not to be too sales pitchy, just be more of that sort of nice guy, rather than like, I do these amazing things. Just bring that energy forward on that video, I think, is more important to get across than what you do, because they can look at what you do on your profile.
Well, definitely on LinkedIn, there is a spot where you can actually post, or not, excuse me, you can actually pin those specific posts directly to like the top 4 or 5 or 6. And I like to be, obviously I like to hear your strategy on how do you identify which ones you want to, pin up at the top there.
Yeah, that's good. So that's called the featured section on LinkedIn, and you can feature posts. You can also feature articles, so it doesn't have to be something you posted on LinkedIn. You can feature all sorts of things on there. So I think it's really good to have like a call to action in there somewhere. So where somebody can book a call with you, or where somebody can have a little bit more information about what you do, whatever's relevant to you. If you pop a link onto there, that's really helpful. Maybe it's like the second one, maybe the first one could be one of your best performing posts. That always builds up a bit of extra credibility. If you don't have that, then maybe something that's really, if you have like a video, perhaps just that extra sort of mile of who you are, that extra touch point that you have with the customer. Or if you don't have that, then start creating content and then pin it there. But yeah, I'd say those are the top ones. I pinned a lot of my my best performing posts there, somewhat in order, but some of them are more relevant to what I want to talk about. So I've noticed that actually that's a good point. I use Shield Analytics, and it tracks the posts. It tells you which ones have done better, which ones haven't, and those are really good to nail down the engagement rate. But then there's also an element of manual in this, because you have to kind of track which posts have actually generated leads, which obviously isn't recorded in Shield or any analytics for that matter. So if you can identify which ones have generated the most leads, perhaps pin that in your featured section as well, because if it's generated leads from the past, if somebody goes onto your profile, chances are it's going to generate more.
And that's a really good point. I appreciate you bringing up the analytical side of things, because obviously we want to measure certain things. And so that's Shield that you use as an analytical tool that really kind of be able to pull that data very quickly for you effectively. And then being able to, be very strategic on that. With those call to actions, do you have a specific tracking link that you use for each post, and kind of, do you get that micro with it, or are you more of just like, hey, overall all the posts have this specific link, this call to action, and then my other social media platforms have other links, so then I know where the lead is coming from?
On LinkedIn, I don't post links because it deprioritizes it, and the algorithm doesn't like links. So because it's taking you away from LinkedIn, which makes sense. So I don't post links as such, but Bitly is a good link tool, which is very good for tracking in general for other platforms. But for my call to actions, it's usually like maybe follow, or drop me a DM if you I don't know, need some help with your personal brand, something like that, where it's not taking you away from LinkedIn's platform, because LinkedIn obviously wants to keep you on there. So if it gets some certain buzzwords or links, it's going to deprioritize it. So you want to keep people in the app, really.
Okay, that's I've heard that, and I appreciate you mentioning that, because I think that's something that always people try to put in, and then LinkedIn automatically puts that as deprioritization, and then focus on other ones that don't have that, which is really cool. Now, what I'd like to also ask is like really repurposing that content. So I know you dominate the LinkedIn world, but before you did, you went into the Instagram side of things, and then you just pivoted and said, hey, let me kind of repurpose this here. I know you've leveraged TikTok at a very high level too. And I'd like to kind of get your response on like, okay, I would imagine you probably have a team by now, but obviously it's dependent upon each audience, right? And taking some of those snippets, LinkedIn platform is tremendously different, and it's developing content around that. And then as well as TikTok is obviously very short snippet video platform, and that structure is tremendously different. So what are certain things that you do very effectively to take that content and repurpose it on all the platforms?
That's a good question. So what I do now, my process for repurposing is starting with LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is my main platform now. That's where I generate all my leads from. So there's no brainer that that's where I'm always going to be creating the most authentic and original content from. So I start there, and whatever I'm posting there, I'll generally repurpose it to Instagram. Obviously, you have to have some sort of image. So generally, I'll post something with an image and almost copy it word for word, because the actual written side of things is the same sort of value. And people have the same sort of wants and needs within my audience on Instagram and LinkedIn. So those are almost identical, which is perfect. Then TikTok is something that I'm venturing into a bit more, but I've been told that the best way to get that across is just to read my posts out, basically, but kind of in a more authentic way, not like a script type. So I can talk about my post, like, because I'm quite inspirational with my posts, then I can have those like short, snappy, like TikTok videos that are like 15 seconds long, get an editor to kind of cut out the, I don't know if there's any ums or ahs in there, and it makes it more short, punchy, and to the point. So it's just a case of doing as much as you can with the same piece of content, so you're not duplicating every single thing that you do. You save time, still hit your audience, levels and stuff, and there's still great traction there. So whatever you can do to repurpose away.
And what I find so interesting, and you mentioned this earlier, and I want to loop back around, because so many individuals, I think I was the same way a little bit. We overthink the creativity part, and like you said, it's just like being able to sit down, have a conversation, say, hey, what stories do you know throughout your life, throughout your experience, and then just basically post it. And it's really not that there's a strategy and a strategic way of engaging, hooking, and whatever, right? And that's a tactical, but like the content itself, it's like some people overthink it and overcomplicate that process. Is that correct? Is that what you're seeing?
Absolutely. So many people don't know where to start, so they don't start. And so that's the biggest thing, because I didn't think about it when I posted. I just told a story and posted it. It's just lucky and by chance that I kind of got that response in a way. And so I think people can overthink it and think, oh, people aren't going to like the story, or, oh, I don't think I've written it in the best way. And I think it's just a case of trialing what works with your audience. And naturally, you're not always going to get 1,000 likes on your first post, but it's a good start to test the waters and just get out there. But what people feel, I think, is they feel fearful. They don't have anything to lose, but they do also have that audience that might judge them for not getting 1,000 likes. And so I think that's how people stop, because they don't see that traction. But I say it's simple. It's simple for me because I know what I'm doing. But I I literally have like 10 post ideas every day, which I write down in my notes, even if it's just one line, just so I can come back to it and I know roughly what the subject was. Then I can build a post out of each line and then create more of a story behind it. So I come up with thoughts when I'm cooking, when I'm going out for a walk, or something that's like a challenge that I've overcome. I'm always thinking naturally, like, this would make great content. And you get into that mindset when you start creating more.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I wanted to reiterate this, because just like you said, it's like when you start really putting that hat on, it's just like, oh wow, I can talk about this. I notice a lot of people struggle with this. And when you're having a conversation with someone, I literally had a conversation the other day about someone, like, he runs a mid 7-figure business, and he's like, I hate what I do because it's like it sucks the energy. I said, well, what if you just focus on the thing, and so now having that conversation, I said, oh, that's a really good piece of content that I could share. And just like you're saying, you just go through life organically. As you run into people, they start coming up with pain. You're like, well, I overcame that pain or overcame that hurdle, and obviously talking about that, and that resonates, it shares, and you're adding value. Because let me ask you this, because see, so many people think, quote unquote, value, add value, add value, and so many times people perceive that as, oh, what I'm going to do is I'm going to push out my book, my this, my that, promote myself, right? And the reality is that they don't want that. They really want to say, hey, how did you solve this specific situation? Is that kind of what you're seeing as well?
Exactly. And so there are ways of promoting, like, your book, for example, without actually saying buy my book. You could talk about the struggles of writing a book, the struggles of writing a book, and people are like, oh, you've got a book, let me check the book out. It's not forced, because when you chase people away, you don't attract. You should always attract and not chase. And when you're chasing, the people are naturally not going to want to buy these things from you. So creating content like that is really, really important. And I see a lot of people like posting, hey, have you seen my new book, or see my new podcast, or something, and whatever it is. But if you can try and structure the content in a different way that provides value to your audience rather than the other way around, it's a huge game changer, because nobody wants to listen to that. Like, it just goes back to the consumer psychology side of things. You really sit there and think about what you would actually respond to that post how you'd respond to that post, you can really start to create content around what you'd like to respond to. So it's always important to remember what your audience wants to see, as well as a mixture of what you want to talk about. So it's a struggle, but I think you get into it once you get into the swing of things, or you can find somebody to help you with that.
Yeah, I just appreciate this conversation because, in today's world, the approach has to be different. Right? We're seeing cost to acquire customer increasing. We're even seeing a recession potentially on the border fence. We're also seeing obviously ad spend increasing, and so the margins are decreasing on some of people's businesses. And the reality is like just like you're saying, is the attracting people by just giving value and actually solving those solutions. And that's why I wanted to have you on to share your experience at a very young age. And to understand this at a very young age, you're going to do incredible things in the future, which I'm very excited about to see and watch and see your journey. And Kat, how can our audience reach out to you? I know you're big on LinkedIn. Obviously, a lot of those links will be in the description, but how else can they reach out, be part of your community? You got some cool things that are happening on your end.
Thanks, Christian. Yeah, so LinkedIn is my main platform. I'm also on pretty much all the other platforms, but the best way to reach me is probably LinkedIn or Instagram.
Awesome. And those links will be in the description below. Also, I will also include her LinkedIn link tree where you can be part of her community. She's got a lot of other things that are going on. She also has a YouTube channel. So those links will be in the description. And I may just want to just stop here and just say, hey, make sure you guys take action. Because the biggest thing is you guys can just keep going like, hey, you know what? I've tried LinkedIn. It's been there. I've tried other social media stuff. And yeah, we've all tried it, but there's a science to it. There's an art and a science to it. And obviously Kat has been able to dial that in because otherwise, she would not have been as successful as she has. So she's been able to figure this out, been able to help other people. And like people say, she's been able to collapse timeframes and see people turning and developing incredible leads at a very short period of time, which is incredible. And Kat, again, I just appreciate the immense value, really diving deep, unpacking a lot of this, strategy behind LinkedIn, but also dominating other and repurposing. And like you said, just paying, building, actually just giving us the actual blueprint of how to effectively attract those right individuals to us. But is there any last words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our audience before we let you go, Kat?
Honestly, I think you nailed it there. I usually say take action now, and what seems like a huge mountain to overcome, just think of the first few steps that you could do to take those actions and get to the bigger picture. So I have to agree with you on that one.
Awesome. And that, my friends, is Kat Philp. Guys, that is Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. Until next time, remember, be uncommon if you can. Yo, this is Christian D. Evans, Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. We thank you so much for listening to this amazing episode. If you feel and you know that this was valuable to you, please show some love to our amazing guest by liking this, by commenting on this, by making sure that you do a nice 5-star review and just show some love to our guest. That'd be really awesome. Also, make sure you share this with a friend, a family, a colleague, someone that you believe would bring value to their life right now. And guys, we just want to say thank you again for just being part of our community. If you want to have more resources, don't be afraid. Go to christiandevans.com. You can actually schedule a phone call with me, or you can send me an email at christian.evans@beUncommonIfYouCan.com. That's christian.evans@beUncommonIfYouCan.com. Always love to hear some feedback and let me know what is the number 1 or 2 things that you are struggling in your business and your life, and we'll make sure we have those conversations. Guys, that is Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast, and until next time, remember, be uncommon if you can. Cheers.